Ahimsa, the principle of nonviolence in Jainism. Welcome, seekers of peace and wisdom. Today, I invite you to join me in understanding the profound principle of Ahimsa, the bedrock of Jain philosophy and a powerful guide for our lives. In Jainism, Ahimsa is not merely an ideal, it is the very essence of our being, a principle that extends beyond mere nonviolence towards a comprehensive compassion for all forms of life. When we speak of ahimsa, we often think of it as simply refraining from physical acts of violence. However, in the Jain tradition, it is a much more encompassing term. It is a state of heart and mind that rejects all forms of violence, not just physical, but also verbal and psychological. It is an active expression of love that insists upon the sanctity of all living beings. In Jainism, every soul is on a journey towards liberation, a process of shedding karmic bonds that hold us to the cycle of birth and death. The soul, in its purest form, is untainted by these bonds, and violence of any kind only serves to increase the density of these karmic particles. We therefore practice ahimsa to purify our souls, to lessen the karmic load, and to move closer to the state of moksha or liberation. To live a life of ahimsa, we must first turn inwards and examine the landscape of our own minds. The seeds of violence can take root in the subtlest of thoughts and intentions. Anger, greed, and jealousy are all forms of violence that we inflict upon our own spirit. They disrupt the harmony of our being and ripple outwards, affecting our actions and interactions. Consider the last time you felt anger towards someone. That emotion, while fleeting, had the power to disturb your inner peace. It may have led to harsh words, which in turn could have hurt another. This chain reaction is what we seek to break with the practice of ahimsa. We must cultivate a mindful awareness of our emotions and their potential consequences. Now, you may wonder how it is possible to live completely free of violence in a world that often seems predicated on it. Jain monks and nuns go to great lengths to avoid harm, sweeping the ground before them to avoid stepping on insects and filtering water to protect microorganisms. While such measures might seem extreme, they are expressions of a deep reverence for life. For lay people, the application of ahimsa can be more practical, yet no less profound. It begins with our dietary choices. Jains adopt a vegetarian or vegan diet as a commitment to nonviolence. By choosing not to consume the flesh of animals, we reduce the demand for industries that cause harm to living beings. But ahimsa extends beyond what we eat to how we engage with the world. It asks us to consider the impact of our lifestyle choices on other beings and on the planet itself. It calls for an ethical approach to consumption, where we take only what we need and make choices that minimize harm. Even in our speech, ahimsa plays a crucial role. The words we choose can build up or break down. They can heal or hurt. To practice ahimsa in communication means to speak truthfully, yet with kindness and sensitivity. It means to listen with an open heart and to respond with compassion. In our relationships, ahimsa becomes a guiding light. It asks us to look at others not as separate from ourselves, but as reflections of our own spirit. When we truly embrace this principle, forgiveness and understanding flow naturally. We become less prone to conflict and more inclined to harmony. Now, in this moment, think of a relationship that challenges you. How could the principle of ahimsa transform your approach to this relationship? How might your interactions change if you viewed the other person with the understanding that, like you, they are on their own path towards liberation? To deepen our commitment to ahimsa, we must also look at the economic structures in which we participate. Do the businesses we support engage in practices that harm the environment or exploit other beings? Can we make choices that encourage more ethical practices? Now, ahimsa is also a call to activism. It inspires us to raise our voices against injustice and to work for the protection of the vulnerable. It is not a passive principle, but one that empowers us to create change in the world. In this way, nonviolence becomes a dynamic force for good. We'll continue to explore the depths of ahimsa and how it can be woven into the fabric of our lives in the next part. Ahimsa Illuminated, the luminous path of compassionate action. Embracing ahimsa fully means to live with attentiveness to the sanctity of life. It requires us to become custodians of compassion, to recognize the divine spark within every creature, and to act in ways that affirm rather than diminish that spark. This is the essence of the Jain commitment to nonviolence, and it is a calling that echoes in the heart of anyone seeking to live a meaningful life. The practice of ahimsa invites us not only to refrain from causing harm, but also to engage in the promotion of well-being. It asks of us to become healers of the world in whatever capacity we can. This can mean volunteering our time to causes that protect the rights of animals, advocating for environmental conservation, or simply offering our skills to uplift our local community. Education plays a pivotal role in the propagation of ahimsa. By educating ourselves and others about the impact of our choices on all forms of life, we plant the seeds of awareness. Knowledge becomes the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance, the root cause of violence and suffering. The economic dimension of ahimsa is profound. Every financial transaction is a moral choice. When we invest our money, we must ask whether we are contributing to the cycle of violence or endorsing the values of nonviolence. It is not enough to be wealthy in material terms. We must strive to be wealthy in virtue, to ensure that our prosperity does not come at the cost of another's suffering. In the realm of politics, ahimsa challenges us to rethink leadership and governance. What would it look like if our leaders prioritized the well-being of all life forms? How would policies change if they were rooted in the principle of nonviolence? As citizens, it is our responsibility to support leaders and initiatives that align with these values. The arts offer a powerful medium for expressing and spreading ahimsa. Music, literature, and visual arts can convey the beauty of nonviolence, touching hearts and shifting perspectives. As creators and consumers of art, we can choose to support works that celebrate life and foster empathy. In our personal lives, ahimsa can be a touchstone for decision-making. It urges us to be mindful of the products we buy, the entertainment we choose, and the companies we support. The practice of nonviolence becomes a holistic approach to living, one that permeates every aspect of our daily existence. But ahimsa is not without its challenges. We live in a complex world where harm can occur indirectly and through systems that are far removed from our immediate control. How do we navigate these complexities without becoming overwhelmed or despondent? The answer lies in cultivating a spirit of resilience and continuous effort. We must do the best we can with the understanding and resources we have, always striving to improve and expand our sphere of compassion. Now, consider the industries that sustain modern life. Many are built on principles that are antithetical to ahimsa. As individuals, we may feel powerless to effect change, but collectively, our choices have power. By supporting sustainable and ethical practices, we send a message to the marketplace, and slowly the tide begins to turn. The practice of ahimsa also calls for introspection. It invites us to examine our own biases and prejudices, to root out the subtle forms of violence we inflict upon others through our thoughts and judgments. How often do we categorize people, creating divisions where there should be unity? How can we move beyond these divisions to recognize our shared humanity? Ahimsa is not a static principle, but a dynamic force that evolves as we grow in our spiritual practice. It is a journey of countless small steps, each one taking us closer to the ideal of nonviolence. Along this path, we find that our capacity for love and compassion expands, and our actions begin to reflect a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. In times of conflict, ahimsa provides a framework for resolution. It encourages us to approach disagreements with an open mind and a peaceful heart. It teaches us that every person has a perspective worth understanding, and that through dialogue and empathy, solutions can be found that honor the dignity of all involved. But what of situations where the harm is already done? Ahimsa does not merely look to prevention, it also embraces the concept of healing. Forgiveness is an act of nonviolence, a release of the desire for retribution, which only perpetuates the cycle of harm. As we continue to explore the nuances of ahimsa, we will also discover how this principle intersects with other spiritual paths and how it can be a bridge to a universal ethos of respect and care for life. In the next part, we will delve deeper into how ahimsa informs our spiritual evolution and how it can be a catalyst for personal and global transformation. The Tapestry of Tranquility, weaving ahimsa into the soul's fabric. The spiritual odyssey through ahimsa is not merely an external commitment to nonviolence, but an internal revolution that transforms the core of our being. It is a tapestry woven with threads of tranquility, kindness, and an unwavering respect for life that, when integrated into the soul's fabric, reshapes our very existence. Ahimsa in spiritual practice is akin to watering the roots of a tree, the roots of our soul, nourishing every branch of our lives with the essence of nonviolence. It influences our thoughts, our meditation, our prayers, and our daily interactions. It becomes the silent pulse of our spiritual heart, guiding us towards actions that are in harmony with the rhythm of the universe. In the silence of meditation, ahimsa unfolds its deepest truths. Here, in the quietude of our inner world, we confront the noise of our violent tendencies. As we sit with these tendencies, observing them without judgment, we begin to understand their origins. We learn how fear, ignorance, and desire can lead us to act against the principle of nonviolence. And in this understanding, we find the keys to liberation. Meditation becomes a crucible for transformation, where the alchemy of ahimsa turns the leaden weight of our aggressions into the gold of compassion. It is in the depths of silence that we hear the subtle language of all living things and realize that nonviolence is not a passive state, but an active engagement with life. This understanding extends to our prayers and our devotion. When we pray, do we not seek a connection with the divine that is based on love and reverence for all creation? Ahimsa informs our prayers, infusing them with an intention for the well-being of all beings. It shapes our devotion into a force that transcends boundaries and unites us in a shared aspiration for peace. As spiritual practitioners, our journey is marked by moments of both clarity and challenge. There will be times when ahimsa seems like an unattainable ideal, especially when we are confronted with injustice or cruelty. In these moments, we must hold even tighter to the principle of nonviolence, trusting that it has the power to overcome even the darkest of circumstances. The practice of ahimsa also invites a profound humility. We recognize that all life is interconnected, and we are but one thread in the vast tapestry of existence. This recognition instills in us a sense of awe and a deep respect for the mystery of life. We come to understand that every action, every word, and every thought contributes to the larger pattern of the world's unfolding story. As we deepen our commitment to ahimsa, we must also be willing to forgive ourselves for our lapses. Nonviolence towards oneself is the foundation upon which we build our practice. Self-forgiveness allows us to learn from our mistakes and to move forward with a gentle determination to do better. But how do we reconcile the principle of ahimsa with the natural instincts of self-preservation? It is a question that invites us to explore the boundaries of nonviolence and to recognize that self-defense and the protection of others can be aligned with ahimsa when rooted in the intention to minimize harm. It is not the action itself, but the consciousness behind the action that determines its alignment with nonviolence. In our exploration of ahimsa, we may find ourselves at the intersection where philosophy meets practicality. It is not enough to understand the principle intellectually. We must live it with every fiber of our being. This means making choices that reflect our commitment to nonviolence, even when they are difficult or inconvenient. Ahimsa calls us to be warriors of peace in a world that often glorifies aggression. It asks us to stand firm in our convictions and to lead by example. It is a path that requires courage, for it challenges the status quo and invites us to imagine a new way of being. In the next part, we will explore how ahimsa can be a beacon in the personal quest for truth, and how it can illuminate the path towards a collective future where nonviolence is the norm, not the exception. Harmony's Horizon, the final ascent on ahimsa's eternal summit. As we reach the culmination of our discourse on ahimsa, we stand at the precipice of a profound realization. The practice of nonviolence is not a destination, but an eternal summit, an everlasting journey that calls us to rise above our basest instincts and soar into the embrace of universal love and understanding. In this final ascent, we discover that ahimsa is the golden key to unlocking the truth of our existence. It is through the lens of nonviolence that we perceive the interconnectedness of life, a tapestry that weaves together the threads of all beings into a single, vibrant fabric. By honoring this interconnectedness, we honor the sanctity of life itself. The personal quest for truth is an inward adventure, and ahimsa guides our steps along this sacred path. It teaches us to look within and confront the shadows of our own violence, not with self-condemnation, but with the compassionate light of awareness. This light reveals the common ground of our shared humanity and our collective longing for peace and happiness. In this light, we see that every act of kindness, every gesture of understanding, and every word of encouragement is a reflection of ahimsa's power. These are the silent revolutions that ripple outwards, creating waves of change in the ocean of consciousness. Our personal transformations, therefore, are not isolated events but integral contributions to the world's collective evolution. As we embody the principle of nonviolence, we become beacons of peace in a world that is often shrouded in the fog of conflict. Each of us has the potential to illuminate the way for others, to show that a life lived in harmony with all beings is not only possible but deeply fulfilling. This illumination is not a fleeting spark, but a steady flame that burns away the illusion of separation and lights the path to unity. Ahimsa also challenges us to envision a future where nonviolence is not an exception, but a universal ethos. It is a future where our institutions, our economies, and our societies are built on the foundations of compassion and respect for life. In this future, we recognize that the health of our planet and the well-being of its inhabitants are inextricably linked, and we act with a collective responsibility to foster this health. This vision of the future is not a utopian fantasy, but a tangible possibility that begins with the choices we make today. Each decision to live with mindfulness, each effort to reduce harm, and each advocacy for justice is a step towards this horizon of harmony. Our actions are the seeds of a world that treasures life, and with each act of nonviolence we water these seeds. The final ascent on Ahimsa's summit is marked by a profound simplicity. It is the understanding that nonviolence is not an abstract concept but a living principle that can be practiced in every moment, with every breath. It is as simple and as challenging as choosing love over hate, understanding over judgment, and unity over division. As we stand on the horizon of harmony, we are called to make a solemn pledge, to uphold the principle of ahimsa in our thoughts, in our words, and in our deeds. It is a pledge to be custodians of peace, guardians of life, and ambassadors of compassion. In the end, the message of ahimsa is one of hope, a hope that is deeply grounded in the belief that change is possible, and that each of us holds the power to create that change. It is a hope that empowers us to continue our journey, not just as individuals, but as a collective, moving towards a future where nonviolence is the very air we breathe and the soil in which we grow. Let us carry forward this flame of ahimsa, nurturing it within ourselves and sharing its warmth with the world. May it guide us on our path, and may it spread far and wide until the horizon of harmony envelops the earth, and the summit of nonviolence becomes our shared home.